everybody. Uh, Dear passionate educators from all around the globe, I extend a very warm greeting to each and every one of you. I am Avni Gurjar, Senior Project Associate at Idobro Impact Solutions, and your compere for this event. Before we get started, I would like to go over a few housekeeping rules for us to have a meaningful conversation and streamline the discussion for everyone's benefit. Um, we would re- we would request all of you to name yourselves in the following manner, with your name along with the name of your city on your devices. Feel free to use the chat feature for questions and thoughts, ensuring that the main discussion remains the central focus. You can also fill the virtual room with excitement by using various emoticons to encourage our speakers and motivate fellow participants. Let's infuse this conversation with some positive energy and engagement. You can utilize the raise hand feature when you wish to speak. The host will acknowledge and unmute you. Please note that this session will be recorded for reference and documentation purposes. And most importantly, please actively participate and engage during the roundtable for a more engaging experience. So now let us move on to our roundtable discussion on cultivating global citizens through value-based experiential education, hosted by Idobro Impact Solutions at the 11th RISE World Summit. So now, without further ado, let's dive straight into this event as I introduce your hosts for this evening, Karen Shaiva and Dipali Bhagwate. Karen, a dedicated social sector professional and thought leader and founder director and MD of Idobro Impact Solutions. So please join your hands together in welcoming Karen Shaiva. And along with her, we have Dipali Bhagwate, who has had an illustrious career as an education practitioner and is now the Senior Impact Lead for Citizenship Vertical at Idobro Impact Solutions. Please put your hands together for the two of them. And the stage is all yours, both of you.
Thank you very much, Avni. I think it is really a pleasure. We are coming to the end of the first day of the Rise World Summit. We had the opening yesterday where we had the release of the Rise Values and the COVID Toolkit. And I do hope many of you caught that. If not, of course, you can catch it a little later on the recordings. For me, this is a topic that is extremely close to my heart. IWO works in three verticals, which is like partnership, entrepreneurship, and citizenship. And while there's a lot that we've done, of course, in the first two, I think citizenship is where we really want to focus going forward. And the reason is very simple, right? For us, the youth is not the dividend of tomorrow. Everybody talks of it as dividend for tomorrow. For us, the youth is our today, our present. And we also believe that, it's not about what they can do and contribute tomorrow, but what is it that they're already learning, absorbing, and doing today. So for us, this is a very, very important topic. It's a very important program. It's a very important collaboration that we seek to work with like-minded educators, like-minded academicians, and like-minded thought leaders who are right here, right now on the screen, as you can see along with. I'm really, really, really excited to hear from all of you because I know all of you are working so passionately in the field on this topic. And what is the topic, right? It's about global citizenship. It is about value-based education. It is about experiential learning. And each of these terms are so critical to ensuring that our youth are not just being taught, but are actually being facilitated through their journey of life, right? Because that's what we are doing. That is what, as academicians, our responsibility to our youth is to help them, guide them through life rather than being just stuffed with concepts and theory, because finally it is what they will take back into their lives at home, in their societies, in their communities, in their activities. That's really what will be the proof of what we delivered within classrooms. And so for me, I think when we look at learning, I also say this very often when I talk about learning, that when one teaches, two learn, right? because teaching is not a one-way street. We when we make it interactive, when we make sure that there is a lot of feedback mechanisms, when we make sure that there is an understanding of how much it is getting integrated in their lives, I think then we also as educators learn. We also as educators understand deeper insights into how can we deliver our work better. And so I think it's a wonderful topic for us to explore, both as facilitators as well as in our own personal growth journey of being educators. Last, I would like to touch upon is the fact of, linking the words global and experiential. The problems of our world are many, and we all know that, right? In fact, some people call them the wicked problems, right? And they are wicked. Why? Because it's just so difficult to solve them. No one person can solve them. The second reason they are wicked is because they're so at one level disconnected and at the other level so tightly interlinked, right? That is, what we do in one part of the world affects another part of the world. We know that. We've seen what has happened during COVID. We see what happens when disaster strikes us. And therefore, understanding a global perspective, zooming in into our lives and then zooming out to understand the impact elsewhere. Or the reverse, zooming out to understand what's happening in the world and then seeing how that is impacting me in my world. So I think that global aspect of understanding the ramifications of our efforts or our actions is really, really critical. The second is experiential. The another reason why they call it wicked, I suppose, is exactly that, right? Because sometimes it is so abstract. It's like, what can I do about it? How does that really matter to me? And so, linked to the zoom in, zoom out is until we experience some part of those problems, we're never going to be able to make that commitment that, yes, I am not just part of, a part of the small part of the world, but I'm part of this global village, and every single thing I do matters. And so making sure that our youth experience and learn through that experiential, avenues is so critical. So how do we make sure that this abstract of the global wicked problems become personal, commitment to change is really what the whole idea of this. And that's why finally the values, because when we understand the value system of everyone around us and we all kind of get in sync with that value system and believe in shared values, that's when we can create the best shared value possible, which is a better world and a greener planet for all. Thank you once again for joining us, both our experts who are right now over here, as well as, of course, all the participants who are there. I think, as Avni said, please don't hesitate to share your comments in the chat box. Please don't hesitate to raise your hands for questions, and of course, keep the interaction going right through these next 2 hours, because I'm excited to see what we come up with at the end of it. Thank you very much, and Deepali, over to you.
Thank you so much, Karan, for setting the context. Before we dive into the actual discussion of this topic, though it is already informed, but I'm just reiterating the same, that we are going to follow the 5C process. The first part is kind of done by Karan, which is context setting. Then we are going to discuss the challenges. Then we are going to discuss the capacity building, the solution towards. Once we discuss the challenges, we have to try and understand the solution. And then we are going to do the collaboration part and the closure. So this is the 5C format that we are going to follow. Now, as Kiran said that why we do, and rightly Veena said that sometimes global citizen also becomes an abstract concept to many, because we perceive it as in a different way. The other person will receive global citizen as a different meaning, because we come through different, we have different personalities around us, and that also impacts our vision, everything. But while the interesting part why we chose this topic, one part is also shared by Kiran, but other part was, if this concept is being talked a lot and there are things that are happening but not clear, then why can't we do a discussion where we will like to discover if value education, experiential learning can be the possibly the two key components for shaping of the global citizens. So how to do that? So we wanted like-minded people who are working on that, and hence this entire discussion is going to happen for that. So when I was researching for this, and everybody knows, so Renner or Kenny, the people who are joining from other cities or other countries, uh, we have now a new education policy from the government. Why I'm giving this reference? Because I was going through that, I was reading that entire policy. There is a one paragraph that is interestingly says what we are going to do today, or the government is emphasizing, but it is in the paper. How we should do it, that we are going to discuss. So I'm just going to tell you what that part says. So it is on final edition of the English PDF of National Education Policy on page number 37. It says that global citizenship education, in short we say it is the GCED, is a response to a contemporary global challenges, will be provided to empower learners to become aware of and understand global issues, to become active promoters for more peaceful, tolerant, inclusive, secure, and sustainable societies. So I feel this peaceful, tolerant, inclusive, secure, sustainable societies are itself are the values. And finally, as a part of the holistic education, students at higher education will be provided with opportunities for internship, local industry, business, artists, craft persons, as well as research internship with the faculty and researchers at their own and other institutions, so that students may actively engage with the practical side of their learning. Now, I felt actually I was in love with this paragraph, because this was literally defining what we are trying to do here, also in the organization and as a part of this discussion. So having said that, let's demystify the terms, and we can take it from, there are three terms that we are talking: global citizens, value education, and as well as the experiential learning. So as Nina introduced herself, and her, the beauty of Nina being beauty, that she's a global citizen itself. And when I came to know about her, and I really, want to know about from Nina and then from Brenner, how you define global citizens. Then from Kenneth and from Mr. Umesh, what is experiential learning for you? And maybe from Anand and Paramjit Dillo, what is the value education for you? So once we kind of define our own terms, we will dive into the next part of the discussion. So can we have, quick, we will take like 1 minute, I guess. Okay, we'll start from Nina. Nina, you're mute.
Yeah, I forgot I'd muted myself. Thank you, Dipali, and good evening to everyone who's joining us today. First of all, want to congratulate the IDBRO team for putting this which I find very valuable topic out there. It's a mouthful, the entire topic, if you were to take it, but when you break it down, each one of those ties into each other. Now, with respect to demystifying these terms, when I first read the topic, the thing that popped in my mind is something that Confucius had said. I know this sort of encompasses all the three angles that we are trying to address, but it goes something like this, if memory serves me well, which is: tell me and I will forget, show me and I may remember, but involve me and I will understand. For me, the definition of a global citizen, which is sort of linked in what we are sort of speaking of, it's a relatively new term. I think it was coined somewhere in the year 2010 or 2011. If you look at the definition, what exactly it means, very self-explanatory. But for me, what it means is when we view ourselves from a 35,000 feet height, not just looking at ourselves as an individual, but also putting in the perspective of everything around us at a broader level, our community, our country, our globe, our planet, and what is our relation or our perspective in it. So keeping all of this in mind, the ultimate aim or intent is for a global citizen is how do we make ourselves, our communities, our environment peaceful, more sustainable, and taking all of those into consideration. Yeah. That's my 1 minute, Dipali.
Yeah, I was unmuting myself. Thanks, Nina. Thank you so much for your views. Moving to Renner, according to you, what is the global citizen?
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. Obviously, it's nearly evening in India. Here it's a sunny early afternoon in Germany. But thanks to Nina Jain about raising the question of the different entrants in this question and the different involvement of the educated people in this. And I think that's the main questions. We are very often talking about global citizenship. We talk and we try to introduce global citizenship as an extraordinary topic. But for me, the main change must be to orientate the whole institution that the people can deal with global challenges, that students in all ages and even the adults are involved in the question, what is the global responsibility of every people and what has it to do with my personality. So that for me is one of the main topics we have to discuss. For me, it's just not about global citizenship. It's more being part of global citizenship. And one element, if I am allowed to add, is being aware of the history of the global development and the development of my peer group, of my regional development, of my social group, and so on and so on. So that is for me, the main topic, and not talking about, but involving people in the future development. That's my 1 minute on this discussion in a moment.
Thank you, Reno, for putting light on the meaning that you feel that it's a global, makes a person a global citizen. And as we are moving towards the second part of it, about the experiential learning, I would like to have Mr. Umesh, who can share his thought about experiential learning.
Yeah, good evening, one you all. For me, experiential learning is something, say, by definition, if you go, it is something which you do hands-on. You do something with your own hands, and then you enjoy. But it is not up to that doing something, but it is much beyond that. When you do something, there are some outcomes out of that. So people should try to understand maybe the knowledge which you are getting, the experience which they are getting, and then applying that knowledge and experience further to understand what impact it can have. Like means connecting it with the global cities. Like we use one word which called butterfly effect, which literally translates like something which happens, say a butterfly which flutters its wing near equator, it can bring or create a cyclone at poles, either North Pole or South Pole. So that kind of effect, it will definitely be, people need to understand that. And the experiential learning also is part of that. Once we can understand all those things, how they are connected, because we are in a connected world, perhaps then we can make the global citizens also, as well as creating knowledge, engaging them, taking the intellectual output from the experience and then applying it to day-to-day life. I think that is what experiential learning is for me. Thank you.
Yeah, and this butterfly effect is, I guess, being educators, many of the people know, and this is something very interesting that how experiential learning have different facets altogether. Maybe if I ask somebody else, they will have some other answer. But what you said that taking experience and putting it that into action is really makes a difference. So going to the Kenneth, what's your take on experiential learning? As you are an outdoor and more experimental person in your education. So if you can
Yes.
share a thought on that.
Yes. Thanks, Deepali. Thanks for inviting me to be here tonight. I really appreciate it. And just a bit of the background. I'm at the Green School in Bali. It's actually night. It's 9 p.m. here, so it's dark. I'm actually at my home. If you're not familiar with Green School, you can look it up online. It's a sustainable school. built entirely out of bamboo, and we have a very different approach to education with a lot of experiential, hands-on type project-based learning that's happening at our school. And it's a school that we don't really have walls. Our classrooms don't have walls. This is an open campus. So it's a very different type of school. I've been doing outdoor education and experiential learning essentially my whole career. I started out working in ecology, and when I think of experiential learning, I think about field-based learning, getting out into the field, getting out into the earth, and seeing things for yourself. Not just reading about it in a book, and not just conceptualizing it abstractly, but being out and being able to engage all the senses, seeing it, hearing it, smelling it, touching it, feeling it, and being part of it yourself. So one of the things that I want to say, I'm happy you said that the government is now wanting to sort of mandate global citizenship. But what I'm hoping is that students will be able to experience and engage with others in the community as well as the natural world before they're asked to solve all the problems. I think it's so important that you have a heartfelt, deep connection with others, with people and planet before you start to talk about all the problems and what are the solutions. I think it's important to love the earth first before you talk about the problems and try to find solutions. You need to have a deep connection to be motivated with an intrinsic motivation to want to get out and make a difference. And so that's my definition, is you get out and you do things, you experience things. For my field is mostly ecology and biology. You don't just read about food webs, you actually go out and see it. You see snakes and spiders and birds. You see them doing their daily business and what they're meant to do in their natural habitats, and you experience it. You don't just see a video or read about it in a textbook. You engage all the senses and you get out, and that's the best way to learn is through firsthand experience, through seeing it yourself. Then you'll be motivated to go and learn more about it from an academic point of view, from a scientific point of view. But until you've had that sort of changing experience where you've seen, a snake eating a lizard, then food web is just an abstraction. You need to have the context of a real life, real world experience first.
Yeah.
And to go back to the original question, what is a global citizen? I think it's an individual.
Pardon, please. We will come back to
Yes.
that. We are just demystifying the definition right now.
Okay.
We will come back. In the interest of time, I'm cutting you. Otherwise, we would have continued.
No worries.
We have one view on the experiential learning from one of our participants, Aparna Rao. And I guess many of us might be knowing her, or as an educator, she is herself very much extremely enriched. So she says that I believe that student must get an immersive experience through learning by doing simulation with learning objectives, clearly mapped out and aligned to the curriculum and program objectives. Very well said, Ms. Aparna. And I'm here taking that point into our discussion too. So moving ahead to our next topic is value education. So one of my favorites is also Ms. Paramjit Kaur. I really like her articles on LinkedIn. So over to you about the values. You are on mute.
See, we know what values are and what education is. Together they make value education. So value education, the aim of value education is to instill the core values, that is ethics and the moral principles in individuals, in students as such. So what are these core values which are required? It's all about empathy. It is all about integrity. It is all about compassion. It is all about social responsibility. Now, value education is not limited to the academic education or the academic upgradation, whatever we call it, in the classroom. It is beyond the four walls of the classroom. It can have a formal setup. It can have an informal setup when we practice and learn these values. All right. And it is beyond excellence in academics. It is pretty much about character building. It is pretty much about sense of responsibility. It is pretty much about, in a way, developing global citizens who care, who are responsible, who do everything. So it's all about global citizenship when I talk about value education.
Lovely. So then one point that you picked up is responsible, and we will come back to that in our discussion, which is going to be there. After Paramjit, Anand would like to take on values.
Yeah, I think Paramjit ji already sort of laid out the premise of what value and education holds for for children and students and learners. But I believe that from a global citizenship point of view, uh, in India we have this phrase called Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which means the whole world is my home. And I think if that is considered as the core base of our value, that I am a citizen of this planet and I'm sharing this planet with the whales, I'm sharing it with the honeybees, I'm sharing it with the earthworm, it's the spiders, it's the sea slugs in the ocean. What my actions are, that my actions are going to impact their life. So whatever I do, I have to realize that every step that I put in, every breath that I take is going to have an impact on the others. So I think if one realizes that, also in value education, if we are as educators, we manage to give them the empathy. Yesterday also Priya mentioned about empathy. In Doon School we had Dalai Lama as the chief guest, and he also mentioned that empathy is a very important thing. If you see, if a child has a cat or a dog at home as a pet, and they grow up as siblings with a pet with them, the entire attitude towards life, or somebody who's a gardener who takes care of plants, they will not go and hack and hurt a plant or a creature. The whole value system, the whole premise with which they work, they're very gentle and soft creatures. So that is how I think, if the whole education is uh, designed in such a way that both your heart, your mind, and your skill sets are developed for I'm a trained as an ecologist, as a wildlife biologist. So, for a conservative approach where we utilize, we access, but we also protect it for the future and believe that those creatures also have equal right to the planet. I think that is the value that we need to have, that of equality. That's very important, that while this is my planet, it also belongs to a lot of creatures who've been here millions of years before me. I think that's the premise that I'm going to start off with at this point.
Okay, so great discussion on demystifying, as per our level, what is global citizen value education or experiential learning. But while saying that, because our topic says the cultivating global citizens through value-based experiential learning, and when we talk about the values, it almost hits psychological to us, are the local values, community values, the values that we carry from the families, or the values that we bring it from your friends or their families in general. But here, the discussion is going to be about how we are going to, build a value system which is going to nurture global citizens in our, own home. As Ms. Paramjit said that responsibilities can be one value. And Anand said that you have to include everybody together so that it grows properly. So inclusive becomes another value. So like that, we are going to try and identify the values, as well as we are also going to. So it comes to my next question to you in terms of when we say all these things. Do you agree? Now, this is an yes and no kind of a question. Can we develop a set of values that are universal in nature? Do you think that it will be possible to have universal value set that can be followed by the young minds that we are going to cater in future now? Now, we are not talking about the past and history, but what we are going to do it for the future. Do you think that we can have or develop um, in this? I don't think so. There is a reaction, there is a thumbs up. But if you can just share on the camera, thumbs up or thumbs down. Yeah, Shalin says thumbs up, Savita says, Anand says, Leena says. Okay, Renner, Kenneth, Umesh, Rajesh, and Paramjit are not agreeing that we are going to have a universal.
We can.
We did. Okay, great. Kenneth, what's your view? Your understanding, my voice is clear to you?
Yes.
Can we build a universal value system which will be followed by no geographical barriers, no barriers there? Every child living in this world can have those values. Is it possible to do that?
Yes. It is.
I don't know if he's able to hear me or not. Okay, so
Yes.
taking yes, many yeses, and then we will do an, this question is for Mr. Rajesh, because he's going to represent government today, though it is part of the government. But still, in your experience, Mr. Rajesh, hypothetically, if we arrive at universal values, how will this policy will help in recognition or designing of these values? Do you think, first of all, as you know, citizens of this India right now, we say that universal values are possible, but being at a level where you are working in the government, do you think that if it's going to happen, or are there anything that is happening on that ground? You are on mute. Please kindly unmute yourself.
Thank you, Deepali. In most of the cases, we have in the different places there are different local values. So some of the local values are applicable in the global context. So policy has there is also policy which can help in recognizing and designing implementation of these values. Some values are also happening at a grassroots level. If there is a policy will be at national level, and also some are at international level. We can make good universal values which can be applicable also for our country, as given in the national policy of education, which gives more emphasis on value system and also on universal values, and it can be applicable to other parts of the globe also. So values are always good. The value of one society cannot harm the other society. Value of one society always wants betterment of other society. So policy at policy level, we can develop the universal values that will help for the whole globe.
That's great to hear that the government is also going to help us to develop the universal values. Before we proceed for the next challenge that we are going to discuss, there is a comment from Ian Davis. It's my pleasure to introduce Ian Davis. He is the Dean of Garuda International School. He was actually supposed to join today's session, but somehow there was glitch. He is traveling and all that, but he wrote something that to develop a universal value system, the question that we were addressing, it requires schools that embrace genuinely their role as educators to create global citizens, and not as educators that create students with high grades and scores. That's a very good thing it's coming from the dean, the dean is saying it's okay not to have a high grades, but I want global citizens and people there. The young minds catering other people and all the good values taking in. Thank you so much, Ian, for joining us today. Now, moving forward, and this is a question to, maybe we can start with Shalini, because her network dropped out and she couldn't speak anything in between. So, Shalini and Miss Savita, if you can, highlight that, what are the challenges that you foresee in applying? Now we are hypothetically developed a universal value system. What are the challenges do you think that we will face in implementation of those systems? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Deepali. And sorry, because I am in a very remote place in Jharkhand. So, yeah, so we had just started. So, one of the challenges that I feel is, of course, we all spoke about value system. The implementation on ground is very challenging. So when you're coming to actually applying it on ground, of course, we do it like it. What I feel it should never be project based. It should come from, within, from an individual, because once you're motivated, once you motivate children, and build those value systems, even if there is no programs or there are no projects, it will, still carry on, because I'm talking it from the experience of our virtual platform that we run, like it's called the Go Global, where we try to connect school children to share, experiences and challenges of, taking care of simple things like
probably waste management in the school, or even having a school garden. What are the learnings? So what are the experiential learnings that can that, and that exchange sometimes becomes challenging because you need to have somebody who is facilitating that. But I think if you build in all these value systems within the kids, I think even as you said, without no boundaries, no barriers, like I know people can connect and do their bit. So that is what I feel. So that is the challenge. Yeah. Once
Yeah.
you feel motivated, yeah, it is possible.
Okay. So lack of motivation and at the grassroots level.
I won't say lack. It is only finding that, that space. You're motivated, but, the guidance, how to go
Okay.
forward, how to move things ahead, because everybody is motivated, but finding that common, ground for people to interact, like build communities
Hmm.
of practices, which is important. So if you are able to build these communities of practices, I think that you go on. Yeah, I think,
Okay.
yeah, Rainer
Great.
will also agree.
Yeah.
We were a part of the ESG expert network. So yeah.
Miss Savita.
Actually, I would like to add on to the point which Dr. Shalini Nair, she said that it should come from within. So that's very important. And we should also be, because when we talk about, values, recognizing and implementing universal values require collaborative efforts also. That is in terms of government, educational institutions, and international organizations also. And moreover, policy supporting universal values should be able to incorporate some kind of flexibility to accommodate diverse cultural expressions. And implementation strategies should prioritize teacher training, community involvement, and regular evaluations to ensure alignment with the evolving global perspectives. Dynamic and inclusive approach can also lead to successful integration of universal values into education system worldwide. And one more thing is that we always say that values, they cannot be taught, they are always caught. So our system of training the teachers also should have that component, so that they are able to make the learners realize the importance of universal values, those kind of things, the temporal values, all kind of values they should be able to realize. So that component should be there. And in terms of curriculum development also, we need to have a framework for curriculum development, which is also be able to think in terms of universal values. So these are the challenges. We have to think in terms of these dimensions. And we should have also international cooperation enabling a shared vision of education that transcends the borders. So that component should be there in the educational system.
So you mean to
And
say
with the
that we need to have a proper framework for implementation of these values, but that
yes,
comes under the policy, I guess. So the
yes.
policy needs to have that framework which needs to be developed. But now
Mhm.
this question is, when we are discussing the challenges of imparting a value education, many of you here and there said that if it's going to be coupled with some kind of an hands-on experiences, right? Now, when we talk about hands-on experiences, it is very much drilled down in our brain. Ki science is the one where there are hands-on experiments or hands-on activities that we can do. But when it comes to different subjects, now there are different labs which are developing. Do you think that the value-based education can have a lab also? Do you think that it is possible? Anybody can pick up this question and answer. Yes, Renner. Thank you.
Yes, I think the educational institution as such is the laboratory. So we should use education as something like a role model to train responsibility, to train and to deal with global responsibility. And so the very, very good experience in education institution is that they are something like a semi-covered system. So the students can make mistakes. They can reflect on mistakes. They can learn from mistakes. So we should really use educational institutions and all institutions where the youth and other people are engaged. We should use them to reflect and to develop solutions, to discuss about solutions, and to reflect on probably not future orientated developments. So for me, it's part of the. It's not a special closed laboratory, but it's the whole society. Maybe it's part of laboratory, and then we should discuss about culture, discuss of the impact of culture on global citizenship, and so on and so on.
Thank you so much. So, see, as Anand also said, it's Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. In Hindi means this whole earth where we are, this whole earth is at disposal to, we can take anything. But when you're talking about, this question just popped it in my head. When we talk about so much of experiential learning and the parents are also behind, go there and learn something and come back. In such cases, when we are trying to develop a universal value system or at least to have a discussion on it, how to develop and what it's going to be in another level of roundtable. But when we are talking about this, do you think that if we couple that value education, even we are saying learn that value, but today children are born in a very difficult globe, very challenging space they are born, and we are expecting too many things out of them. In that, if we have to seamlessly make a space for them so that they understand what responsibility is, rather than making them, hey, you are not being responsible, or this is the thing that you have to do for your planet, for yourself, for your family, it's a burden to them. They are not going to take it that nicely. So when we have to build such system where everything very seamless. Okay, Krishna has joined finally with us. He is from Coimbatore, CEO of Green Paper. So as Krishna is there, we can just have and throw this question at him. So Krishna, what is your take if we have to build a question and build a value-based system, and we are coupling that with the experiential learning? If you have to elaborate that with your experience with an example, so everybody was here actually talking about being responsible is one of the value. So how you think that it can be coupled with the experiential learning?
Okay, well, my experience with action learning or experiential learning has been mostly, doing sprints, action sprints with a lot of learners. And, quite evidently what I've realized is when people act and when they do things with their own hand and think for themselves, there is a whole lot of difference than pushing the best of inspiring content to them, right? So content is important, but at the same time, people discover learning or insights from or realizations from their own experiences. And if we can just push them to sprints and take them through the chaotic journey of going through figuring out by themselves, just like we learn the best of our skills on the way, right? That would be really good. So there is two things. One is structured content-based learning, which is the most celebrated learning, which is because it's easy to sell and there is a clear structure, there is very clear deadline, more looks like a scheduled program, right? But the action learning sometimes is not very structured, even though like we say there is a 7-day sprint. What happens inside the 7 days a little bit unstructured, like because people can be unpredictable, people behave in their own ways, but essentially they can act with you. It's like a lot of elements inside a team working together and trying to achieve something together, and the kind of learnings and insights are tremendous. And even though, like for example, just to know, like even if it's technical skills or values, right? So I think nothing like action sprints, which actually teaches people values, like you're talking about responsibility. The reason is because you see someone doing things responsibly. I think that is the best mimetic learning we can ever get than by, probably listening to someone's best of responsibility TED Talks, for 1 hour, right? You get a lot of ideas, but seeing someone just like you, someone, right, or maybe sometimes even not as capable as you doing things responsibly, it just kicks in you, right? It becomes internal, and it helps you to internalize the idea. So I think action sprints are not just about knowing and understanding. It moves from knowing and understanding to internalizing the concept.
Thanks, Krishna, on that. And taking that question or taking that answer ahead, that action sprints will help us. In short, when our parents used to say ki being a elder person, behave well so that your siblings will follow, or it's the same thing. I guess Krishna is trying to say that if you do, if you want somebody to do something, you need to first follow it. And if you want to be responsible for somebody, even if you're your own child, or even if it's your class or your classroom students, you need that within you. If I'm saying basic things, switch off the lights, being a responsible person, you need to act that when you're leaving the classroom. I guess I'm taking that, what you are saying. So going back to Nina, if you want to add add your opinion to this, that when we talk about this value-based entire experiential learning, such a big word, what are the challenges you foresee when we are trying to, implement, as well as in the designing part? So first, let's say talk about designing and implementation. So I guess Shalini and Savita also mentioned certain things, but we went to the implementation, but we have not seen the designing part of it. So what do you think that what kind of challenges that we can feel?
Well, I think one of the major, so first of all, just to sort of put a context, values are something that I think we all have, which are lying dormant or sleeping within us. It's just a way of how it is woken up in us. Now, vis-a-vis designing or sort of understanding how do we actually design a framework, the challenges, I'm assuming you're asking me about the challenges. Am I right, Dipali?
Correct. Yes.
So I think one of the challenges that are faced that might come into way is we are very focused on assessments. I think this point was made earlier as well. If we have to design something in terms of value based, how is that actually going to be assessed? It's impact evaluated. That is a huge challenge that comes about to be. The curriculum is designed in a specific fashion, and the students are aware that they are marked and graded and so on and so forth. So we come back to the same as far as the school education is concerned. The other challenge in terms of designing it is, are the teachers adequately prepared and prepped for it? How do we make sure that the educators impart the knowledge in the right fashion to the students? Is that done in a way that the true value of it is actually coming out? In terms of designing, if we were to integrate this with the curriculum, how is it best done? In what fashion is it actually going to make the most amount of impact as far as the students are concerned? So while talking about it and while thinking that this value-based experiential learning we think is easy to do or implement or design, if we all take a conscious, or if we all make a conscious effort, the educators, the students, and I think one angle that we're not considering, individuals, even us, if each of us in our own individual capacities can somehow sort of bring this out into the foray and ensure that what is lying dormant with us is actually exposed, then I think we will, like Krishna's just said, make an impact in our own little way. These kind of action that we undertake will, and I'm going to use this, Karen, if you don't mind, but the ripple will only grow.
True that.
That's my take for as far as the designing and the value angle is considered.
Thank you so much. So in this first section, we discussed about the challenges main related to, first of all, how to make this value system. And if we hypothetically make it, then we need to, first start with, because the majority of the students in India work or study in government schools or follow the government curriculum. So it should come from the policy. But when we talk about the policy, there is a framework that is there. So how a pedagogy can be built up? Yes, Kenneth?
I would like to add to that, yeah, but keep going.
No, you please speak. And
Well,
Renan is also.
like Nina said, I think we already have universal values. It's whether we are conscious of it or not. In my experience, it doesn't matter what country I'm in or what nationality I ask my Indian students, my Chinese students, my Thai students, my American students, my Australian students. Why do you go to school? So I can get a good job. Why? So I can have things like we have this value system that we really value the accumulation of material wealth. So why do we go to school? Well, so I can go to college. Why do I want to go to college? So I can study to become a doctor. Why do I want to become a doctor? So I can have a big house and a couple of cars, so I can have material wealth. That's a sign of success. So that's a universal value. Now, whether or not we consciously are aware of that, or whether a lot of times kids pick it up from their parents and it's like an unconscious message that they're sending and getting. And I hear that from my students. Like, my parents said I must be a doctor, or I must be a lawyer, I must be some high performing, master's degree, PhD. I must go to school, lots of school, so that I can get a good job that pays a lot, a big salary, so that I can have lots of nice things. So we already have a universal value system, because it's been my experience. No matter where I am in the world, if I ask students why they go to school, they all have the same answer, and it's
Okay.
so I can go to university. Why do you want to do that? So I can become a doctor, a lawyer, or engineer or something, so I can have a good job and make lots of money. That's
Right.
their answer, and they're getting that value from somewhere.
Right.
Maybe
So,
from
Keron
school or from
wants to
parents.
say something.
Kenneth, if I could maybe jump in a little bit over here, you're absolutely right. That is the answer. But is that a value? I
No,
don't think so. I think that is an objective, a goal, which
If
is the
we
reason why they
value,
come for education. The value that is driving it is perhaps one of the four that we talk about, which is sustainable. Because at that moment, they're only thinking about that, right? Okay, I have to think long term for my well-being, and to make sure that I can survive. And so only the sustainable. And I think that's the idea, right? Can we create a value system which is far more holistic and doesn't get bound by the context of of region, of age, of history, geography, because there are so many things that affect our value systems, right? And so that's the whole idea of creating such a value system that perhaps could be this minimum that everyone would agree to, that yes, we need these systems. I mean, we need these values beyond just the value of creating a great life and comfortable life for ourselves. So just thought
yeah,
I would add that little bit to that. But thank
Yeah.
you,
yeah,
yes, for sharing that.
Yeah. Thanks.
Reality. Thank you for sharing that reality of what it is like on
Yes.
the ground, in spite of what we might be talking as a comment.
True that.
Yeah.
I was saying the same thing, that when we talk about the goal has to be associated with the values that we carry to, achieve that goal. So we are discussing those, milestones that we want to take with us throughout since our, upbringing. But we will come back to that, and we will go to Renner, because he was saying something when I was summarizing the challenges.
yes, I think exactly we should reflect on these so-called, I will not name them maybe so-called values, because it's one direction the people, the students follow, but not all of them. And the society has another value system. So we should reflect on it. And in Germany, we have the main topic of education and main area in that education is that to share with difficulties, to share with different opinions, not discussion only one opinion, even it's a government opinion, but to share different opinions. And the role and the function of the educator is to raise these open questions and to lead children and future generations to deal with future questions and to reflect on that. And that could be some part of education, because it's based on our history in Germany, that we reflect on different social situations, and that should be part of the education, to deal with conflicts, to deal with different opinions and different catalogs of values, and to make the students beware that they have to choose, and they have to to make a decision. And that could, one part of it, and that's my last point is, sometimes we should bring students in the steering wheel. They must really able in sometimes they must be part of the steering situation, and they must influence even the situation of their educational institution.
True that. So we have to move to the next segment, which Anand, we will come back. Just give me, let's start the segment and then maybe we will come back to the point that you want to raise. When we are talking about the challenges, there are several things we discuss. Now we have to move towards the part where we are kind of trying to, not solve it, but giving a context where we will be able to reach to a point where we can develop something at the end of this discussion, which will help us to put the values together. Now, when we are talking about, like Karan said, when Kenneth raised a point about what people are thinking ultimately, and she spoke about the value, which is third value, that we say sustainable thinking. Now, when we talk about sustainable thinking or inclusive approach or being more responsible, anyone from your side, can these things, these three words can help us to bring some solution when we are talking about having a common values or having the universal values. We can start with Ms. Paramjit, if you want to shed light on that. You're on mute.
You know what? We are making value education a difficult stuff, and I don't believe in that. It's such a simple thing. You walk in the school, you pick up a wrapper, values comes in, people see you, they do the same thing. You tell your gardener, you've done a fabulous job, I just love you. Children are watching you, children are not plucking the plants, they are valuing and they are loving the lawns which are there in the school. You pat a teacher here and say, oh my God, you've done such a great job, your children were all in praise for you. There, the values comes in, everywhere the values come. Anyway, now means I feel value education is not at all difficult. I don't feel you have to have a special lab for it. I don't feel you have to have special rules for it. We have the academics, you talk about environment, and common sense says we need to protect the environment. It's simple. So that's value education. You don't need something extra to be done. And anything mandatory never succeeds. You say we're going to have value education, make it mandatory. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, it's not going to succeed. Right? You add another book. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we have plenty of them. If you find any problem in the world around, you say begin from the school. Right? School should do this, and teachers are superwomen here. All right? Teachers are families, they have their own lives. All right? They are on the top of the world one day. The next day, they are not. So, coming to it, if we want to develop these values, and if we talk about the school education, there are some universal values which we talked about, sustainability, as you said. See, we have to make our children understand cultural sensitivity, that we have to respect all cultures. Indian cultures, the cultures in between India, the cultures outside the world, sum it up, everything to do with sustainable development goals. Respect inequality, respect the energy which is there, respect the water which is there, respect plants, animals, life on land, everything we need to respect. Universal values like honesty, integrity, compassion, all this, empathy, everything needs to be respected. These are universal values. And then human rights. If we can take care of the human rights, fine, everything is okay. Nothing goes bad, values are there on the dot. Now, and then of course, we are living on the planet. We need to protect our planet for ourselves and for every other biodiversity which is there. And of course, we need to be global citizens to practice all this, to be out of your country, out of your region, and think of the broader challenges, find broader solutions, respect everybody around the world. It's an interconnected humanity and it's an interconnected world. Let's do it. That's it.
Yeah.
Great. Maybe I'll just one line, Deepali. Yeah, I think what you just said actually underlines what I said a little earlier, that finally values are contextual, and that is why, like, if you take something like talking about very simple thing as saying hard work, today's people will say, no, I'm sorry, I'm not interested in hard work, I'm interested in smart work. you know. So I think what is really required is to move away from that context and create this bare minimum, and which is why the 4 values that we talk about, again, I mean, I'm sorry I'm repeating that, but again, that everybody will, there's no one who can argue about being responsible. I'll give a very quick, sorry, I know I said one sentence, but I very quickly say this. There is a friend of mine who used to tell me that, when I used to tell my son, be good, he would turn around and laugh. When I should tell my son, be responsible, and he's like, okay, I'll think about that. I mean, literally, right? So she actually thanked me for sharing when I was talking about the rise values. So I think that's what we're trying to get at, that we need to have some bare minimum values that everybody will accept and not argue with and say, you know what, this doesn't apply to me, because values are contextual. As you rightly ended it by saying, the history and geography. So I just want to kind of add that. Sorry, Dipali, over to you.
Nee, thank you so much for coming there. So here we are not discussing that we need to have a book differently for the value education. What we are trying to do a conversation around is, if we have to have values, it cannot be, taught as like somebody phrased it out, it has to be taught. But nowadays, because the children are thrown into such different environment, it's very difficult to do this, catching and all jumbling. So can we only nudge them to a value system that will help them for the future to become a proper global citizens that we are trying to envision for them only? So we are not asking actually their opinion, which is very sad. We should have maybe a youth representative on this expert thing that I missed it. But what I'm trying to say here, we are not talking about changing the policy, or we are not talking about changing the framework. This is just an hypothetical discussion that we earlier did, and we discussed about the challenges, and now we are discussing kind of, where we want to go for the solutions. Now here, this question maybe can be addressed by, again, Mr. Umesh ji, and Anand can come here, and he wanted to say something. Now, when we talk about, building inclusive competence is a key objective. Okay. Now, if you can share specific activities, and if you can broaden the ways with different examples or methods that have been proven successful in developing these competencies in students. Now, we will first go to Mr. Umesh ji, because he is the director of Nehru Science Center, and it's filled with too much phenomenal things. So, and coming with a 30 plus years of experience handling students and being in administrative thing, what is your take on this question?
Thank you, Deepali. What you said about in fact, basically we need to tell about these values through experiential learning in a different format, perhaps a different method. I will give you, as you said, one example. We talk about sustainable developments. Generally, this word is basically a buzzword now. But I don't know how many people at young age they have really understood what this sustainable development is, or what this sustainability is. So, for example, I will give you one example. We always talk about, to save Earth, we need to plant more and more trees, but that can mitigate impact of our activities, what we are doing, the carbon footprint, or water footprint, or light footprint, whatever we are creating damage to the. But can we ask our students to think in a critical way and tell them, can only the tree plantations save us? The one example, taking it further, is, for example, how much land we have, what is the population on Earth, per person, how many trees you require, how many acres of land you will cover with that. And if you cover the entire calculation, you will find that you don't have that much land to plant those many trees which can serve the purpose. So if we allow them to analyze the entire setting, then perhaps they will be forced to think in a different format. Okay, this alone cannot solve the problem. We need to do something else along with that, so that we can meet the targets, we can create those values. There are many things we do at Science Center. We try to, where is another simple example? Say, if I order for a cup of tea, and if I don't use it, or I don't sip it, or if I order some food, and how can we tell them about that it is not a matter of a few rupees or a cup of tea. How much process has been there behind that, which has its own carbon footprint? Perhaps this can help us a lot. And what you said means in the form of book and all that. We need to have developed those methodologies. Maybe we need more mentors to take this message to them. Sometimes they have, as Karan has said, people are much more smart. They have their own perception. They have their own goal. Sometimes we set a different goal. They take out something different. So perhaps that tuning also is required, and that's where perhaps schools, colleges, we ourselves as educators, non-formal educators, we can play a better role. But we need more manpower and more mentors. What do you call? Finally, it will go to the collaboration between all of you, between us, so that we can create a better setup and better system.
Thank you so much. Moving to Anand. Anand,
Thank you, Deepali. Yeah. I am going to come in from a very different point of view now, since I'm an international teachers trainer. If you know, if you whoever understands or knows of the mythological, in Indian mythology, Krishna was the driver of Arjuna to succeed in anything. If we're going to talk about students being successful, if we are not going to focus on the educators, I think we'll not achieve what we are wanting to achieve. There's a big lacuna or gap in this space, that where the educators are not being made the center of the entire discourse. It's being imposed onto them. So what happens is that, when educator, like in India, in villages, in rural, I work in tribal areas as well, and there the teacher is sort of, literally the messenger of God. And even in the past, teachers, the guru used to be considered to be a very important figure in the learning process. So I think, bringing back, like in Canada, to be an educator is a very, very important position. They are financially and intellectually, they're constantly given upgradation, they're given facilities, and they're not struggling with resources, both personal and professional. So I think, putting the teacher's position back in a respected position is very important if you want to achieve this global objectives that are there. That is one. Second is that I think we need to change from competitive learning to cooperative learning. I think currently the way the learning parameters are very, very competitive. Historically, learning has been cooperative, even in wild and in nature. A bird learns from the tiger learns from the monkey learns from another creature. So cooperative learning is very important. Children can cross pollinate, teachers can cross pollinate. I think those kinds of facilities or those kinds of enablers need to be created. Those are some of the challenges. And one of the challenge that I wanted to point out earlier is that in education there is a lot of negativity. Negative education is being implemented, and especially environment education. Uh, there can be a lot of positive education that can.
In
Yeah.
the interest of time, because
Yeah.
we already had, devoted time for the discussion of challenges. The
Right.
question was if you have any examples.
Yeah. Okay. I'll quickly come to that.
One
So
or two, because others have
yeah,
to.
sure. So, cross subject teaching, when we were in Dune school, what we did is we took let's say islands. We were talking about islands. So, in geography, the teachers talked about islands as a geographical parameter. They looked at the temperature, the climate, the geography that is there, the physical geography that is there. In literature, we had, let's say they talked about uh, uh, they took Gulliver's Travel, and they looked at that as going to an island. In environment, we looked at the trees and the flora and the fauna that is there. Economically, they looked at what islands are, and what linguistically, like again, they looked at island languages. The dining hall took in the food that is there. The music school took the music that is there, and that becomes a holistic understanding. And then the children had to write a story or create a theater activity where they created, they wanted to get lost onto an island, and then they decided which latitude, longitude they wanted to be, what threatened creatures or what tribal communities could be there. So they got a very holistic, complete picture of what an island ecosystem is about. So I think, from history, from culture, from politics, from economics, and food and music, and all these aspects can be very nicely when you do cross subject teaching. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, thank you. But in addition, if I have to, just look at the points that you already all have said, it is putting down one thing very, evidently, that everybody is saying that if we have to have an experience or a learning where you are giving a kind of immersive learning, it will be better to build those values. rather than having a book, rather than having a period to teach that values, or having anything unnecessary that will take up the time of the students. So how seamlessly that can be done, that is which is actually coming up very prominently. So before we move ahead, any additional thoughts, or anybody wants to share the examples which can reflect the questions about inclusive competency? Yes, Mr. Rajesh and
Yeah,
Krishna.
yeah, just
Anybody?
a quick point. So
Yeah.
I think most of the content and education and learning has been kind of centered around a lot of rational, very logical way of, narrating things, right? So, for example, if you want to teach about values, you'll explain what values are and very rationally. So, but then essentially in the action sprint experience which I've gathered, what I feel is that if there are no emotions, there is no learning, right? So how can we emotionalize the content? How can we convert rational concepts into stories? And how can we even teach the most, concrete subjects like, so for example, physics or, geography for that matter, into stories and emotions, people would relate it to it better. Like the kind of values you've been talking about. I think emotion is the center of the whole learning process, especially in the action sprint space. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, Krishna. And social emotional learning is something it's taken up very seriously nowadays. But how much understanding, like Anand said, the teacher have it. It might be taught in the pedagogy, but how much teacher is understanding. So everything is so interconnected when we talk about such a broad topic. Like me and Nina, when I had a first discussion on this, she said you have picked up such a huge topic for that discussion, which are having so many angles and so many layers. Today we might able to fill up little. Let's see how it is going. So anybody else wants Mr. Rajesh Kumar raised hand, because I guess he is also very experimental teacher and got many awards for his work. If you want to come in, please.
Yeah, Dipali, thank you. We have an experience at the school level. Uh, there was a problem in local biodiversity, and also most of the students feel that there is a loss of biodiversity, plants, animals. So students of that schools, teachers and the community involved, they also established medicinal plant garden and also aquatic animal home at the school level. So they develop love and affection for aquatic animals. It will help in conservation of aquatic animals, particularly indigenous fishes, crabs, snails, and the turtles of that locality. And also they learn about different plants, flora, fauna of that locality. They develop the garden in their schools. So as a result, the love for biodiversity, love for nature, love for flora and fauna also developed. This is also a good example we have experienced.
Okay, so when we are doing all this, yes, Rena, coming to you, just give me a moment. When we are doing all this experiment or all this immersive learning at the schools, definitely there are many things that come up. Um, it's a critical thinking, collaborative learning, team building activities. With all these things, as Nina said, though the values are dormant, it comes, वो आते हैं बाहर, but it's something, sometimes it gets suppressed also. Many reasons are there. So if we have to go a little bit into psychological mode of understanding, when we are discussing responsible, being inclusive, sustainable, or ecosystem friendly as a value, what are the emotional things that can depress this, and how, as an educator, how as a person from the education, or the people who represent, like you all are experts and representing certain things, according to you all, how can we make this very easy for them to understand? So over to Rena, you were saying something, and then we can take up what I said.
Okay, it's exactly in that direction. I worked for 2 years in Mongolia, and the interesting development was that in the countryside, not in Ulaanbaatar, but in the countryside, a lot of people are very much linked to nature via being a nomadic agriculture, by doing nomadic agriculture, and they raised some questions about a very strict problem in the environment. And it was a main and a good idea for the teacher to involve the questions of the parents, to involve the questions of the local situation, to discuss values and to look on it and to help them to yeah, for example, maybe they link the value questions to their local problems. And that could be one element of education, that we should be aware of this and we should offer some guidance in those questions. That could be one element of education in schools and even in the society.
That's wonderful what you just shared, and it's a very different when you actually work with different people and trying to understand their emotions and reflect back upon their action and then give them a solution. It's a tedious task, and thank you so much for sharing that experience with us. So going ahead, anybody else wants to additionally have an example for inclusive competencies that you do or you have seen, or otherwise we can move to the next. Yes, Miss Paramji, sorry. Again, you're on mute. Sorry. You can unmute yourself.
So we did a project which was known as Rise Up for E-Waste. During the COVID time, everybody, all the teachers, they wanted the best of the best devices. They wanted to upgrade their systems and everything. Children also had to do it. We had to go for online learning in a big way. The entire school goes online. So during that particular time, we found there were heaps of e-waste which was generated. Now, India is a developing country. We do not have those many skills as such, how to go about it. And we became a dumping ground for many of the developed countries. So what we decided, it was the students who started this, ma'am. What happens? It all started from the students. And then we thought, let's go for actually we went for an international project. In this, first of all, we went for a survey. We had about 4,008 students who participated. We had 340 educators and from 37 countries. So we would, it went for 3 months. It was all about good health. It was about SDG 3, that how can we safely recycle? And this was a project in which industry and the education institution, they joined hands. It was on LinkedIn. I put that, we are in the process of e-waste. And how can we visit some e-waste companies, recycling companies? We visited virtually, and we would meet twice in a month. From this COVID time was when our IT skills developed many more times than normally it would, and we had so many global friends, educators from around the world. So that is the reason we could get hold of all this, and then. We surveyed what you know about e-waste. Then we said, from where do we get these chips? What are the rare metals which are found? We went to Colombo. We went to batteries, that they have all this and how it has to be disposed. And slowly, steadily, we could wind up. We had plenty of art integration. It was inclusivity through and through. It was people from different countries. We had from Africa also. We had from all the countries. We had from China. We had from Vietnam, Taiwan. We had from Pakistan. We had from Sri Lanka. So with so many countries working together, it was inclusivity. And since it was art integration, and even, the voice of the student was used, we used technology where they used Flipgrid. All this was done, and no blowing trumpets, but we were winner of international, winner of Microsoft Tech for Good Challenge for SDG 3. So it is possible. We can do. That was experiential learning. That was inclusivity. That was everything in it. Yes.
Thank you so much sharing your experience for inclusive global. This is a very dear topic to Rena, that is global competencies, I guess. But Nina, Savita raised hand. Yes, Savita. Nina, I'll take Savita first. Is that okay? Yeah, thank you.
I would just like to add on, during my visits to one of the institutions, a practice which I saw in that, it was a school, and a lot of paper is wasted within a school, no? Because students, they rough paper. So the school had initiated a project with the vision of their dynamic principle. So the project was regarding how to use this paper, which is paper waste, no? So they had a paper mache lab. Okay, so all the waste paper was being collected by the students, and they were working together in that lab, and they were making beautiful files, mugs out of that. And moreover, out of this, the products which they had made, they were being sold during the fairs. and whatever resources were generated, so they were used for funding because there were some students who were from poor background also were coming in the classes, so for funding their stationery and those kind of costs, because these students who were from weaker sections of the society, they were tuition fees was that was not being charged, but of course they had to buy some kind of a stationery. So this was a feeling of being with the community, working for the community, that came. So I could feel that the students were taking some values by the means of this project. One is that we have to think in terms of environmental context, the sustainable development. Then we also have to think in terms of meeting the needs of the others, empathy, somebody, then dignity of labor also, because they were working there with their hands. So that way I felt that it was beautifully implementing some kind of values, and moreover the students were also getting some kind of a feeling of working for the community, satisfaction. So that is what I felt. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Over to Nia.
Thank you, Dipali. As I said earlier, I think values lie dormant in us. I'd just like to reiterate. And the banker in me will say this all the time. It's an intangible asset that we all hold, which only becomes tangible the moment it is put into action. So keeping this in mind, and of course, there's no book or directory or a regimen or a curriculum that can actually outline exactly what value-based education should be. One of the projects that I'd like to talk about that we did with UNESCO in order to inculcate the importance of water that it has in our lives. We did a project with UNESCO which was called H2O. Through this project, it was our aim to teach all the students the importance of water. We use it as a resource and we take it for granted, but its value needs to be determined. Now, understanding the significance of it, it's not just through teaching them or giving them something to read and then telling them, all right, take a quiz and now you know what water means. We went a little bit beyond that in order to drill the message down. And these are, mind you, young students who were from grades 4 to 8, because that's when they are actually developing their thought process and their context on where they stand vis-a-vis in a global sort of sense. Initially, we started out by showing them videos of how water is actually wasted. What are the sources, which we don't really realize. We have a glass of water, we probably throw half of it if we don't drink the rest. That is waste of water. Water that comes from the AC units, which gets collected. That is another use. Water can be used elsewhere. So videos were shown to the students so that they understand that we don't know what we don't know. So the students didn't know that this is how water is being wasted. After having gone through that, we actually introduced students to storyboarding and animation classes. What we wanted to do through this was for them to understand if they wanted to communicate an idea, which they saw in their immediate circle of water being wasted, how would they be able to communicate that? How will they be able to showcase that and say that this is not right and perhaps it can be done differently? Or maybe a little judiciously. After having received the stories, we actually animated those handpicked stories, which was wonderful because once the students saw how it is put into a context, it's one thing writing a story, it's one thing drawing and doing art, but it's another thing to actually see the final product of what their idea was. And that was very powerful. When we shared that with the schools, the students actually understood how they were wasting water. And when you get messages from the schools to say that, the amount of water that is being used more judiciously is now, it's very heartwarming to see. So projects like these, again, I would say that the thought of water or, is the value that is created out of it, or the underlying value is consideration. It is a sort of, thinking for everyone around us. All of these are values that were brought to the surface. And, you don't have to label those values. I think it should be subconsciously coming out in each and every one of us. And that action can be done by the teacher, by the school in the bigger context. It can be done by a parent too, at home. If we do an act of, oh, let's not waste that water, the child carries it onwards because we are all in their circle of influence. So yeah, I can talk hours on this, so I'm going to stop.
Yeah, 1 second, Anand, 1 second. So, you said that considering is the thing. I also felt that being conscious and more, more
Aware.
Yeah, more aware about the fact is what your inclusive activity did to the students. However, going ahead, because we have a limitation of the time too, because we have given time till 8 and we have to still go to two things. It's one is the collaboration part of it, but before going to that, if I have to distill this into maybe the key insights that we got and put it into a maybe in a shorter way, and this is also our theme, that think different and act together. I feel that whatever we discuss through the global citizenship education, it provides maybe a lens to view issues and challenges through. And what we at global, what we are discussing today at this roundtable, it's kind of a system thinking. Through today we actually have a day that we are doing on 16th of January, the whole day that we spent on discussion on system thinking, and why we chose today for this roundtable was also for the reason, because we are not talking about only the children, we are also talking about the educator, the parents, the society, the the earth, and every element who can be part of this value system and how they can be part of this value system. And I feel that it's a system thinking that we have to instill amongst ourselves, and to have as Karen says, whenever we do this research, we have to zoom in and zoom out to understand what is going to happen. So where you think and act both global and local, instead of thinking global and acting local, global citizenship, I think it aims to instill the learners the values, the attitudes, and the behaviors that supports on a very responsible, inclusive, sustainable global citizenship, which entirely will come together to the ecosystem friendly value that we discuss. But going ahead, and before going for the collaboration, because there is something that we have to discuss for our self-interest, I would like to invite Kiran to discuss about, in short, the community that we are developing, Academia Impact Circle, and also the Rise to Change program in a bit.
Yeah. So yes, I mean, of course, the whole idea of the rise values and the rise to change is to create that bare minimum, hopefully understanding, of what values can we really focus on so that we can all work together. And that's the collaboration that we're talking about. So we are very keen that the Rise to Change program, which is a value-based experiential learning program, with a very clear global outview, because we use the SDGs as a backdrop to that, is something that we'd like to take as far and wide as we can. And so we'd love to partner. We love to learn from you how we can improve it, include your elements of what you are doing, and how can we possibly bring that in and work together. So we can of course talk about that later, but definitely the 2 lines is and the opportunity to say those 2 lines is much appreciated. So thanks a lot, Dipali. Let's move on. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kiran, for putting those words together. Now, when we talk about the collaboration part, one aspect Kiran mentioned, that we are also looking out to the education enthusiasts to give their opinion, share their perspective on what we are doing. But I would also like to understand from you all, when we are talking about this entire this difficult topic, as I said, like how, when we look at this challenges, and when we we have dived into the discussion to find the kind of or arrive at some conclusions, do you think that whatever we are trying to build this, or in terms of global competencies, or in terms of global perspective, to understand the value system better, how each person can play their role? Like when we are talking about having a participation with NGO, or having a participation of international organization which amplify this entire impact of cultivating global citizenship, if you can, if you're already practicing it, or if you already have certain measures that you have taken, or you're thinking of doing that, if you can share it in some time, but we will start with the most less spoken person, Shalini, then Krishna. Shalini, if you have a bandwidth, please, we would like to hear you.
Yeah, sorry. So, as I said, I'm really sorry because my connection keeps going off because I'm in Jharkhand. So when I'm talking of this collaborative practice, I would like to share something that we tried. Since we had this, expert net between 4 countries, that was, Germany, South Africa, Mexico, and India. So we, as part of that network, we thought like, how can we take this, forward? Like, what could we do more? And that is how then we were actually a part of, leaders who were like, who were taken to train for, sustainability or sustainable development. And so we, as an alumni, we came together and put together this virtual platform called Go Global. And the whole idea was where, students could come and share, right, the learnings across. So it was basically to look at how we could encourage, cross-cultural learning, because there are so many things that are similar. There are so many problems that are similar. So what are the solutions and what are the best practices they can, take across? So we try to create this platform, and we thought that learning needs to be organic. And as Paramjit, truly said, you cannot have values that can be, put it across or, made stricter. So we thought that all values that come should be, come out organically. Like, people have to develop these values organically and share. And we also, try to work with, then we thought, okay, like not at students. So as somebody very rightly said, we need to work with, teachers, because in the end, they are the ones who are going to also, implement these things with students. So we also had this exchange program of teachers across the countries, trying to like we did one with, Rajesh Ji, where we looked at medicinal plants and values, like how medicinal plants are common across Mexico, India, right? But only known by different names, but the medicinal values are same. The the value systems which are there, the traditional medicinal practices. So we try to do this exchange between teachers, where they also share their, understanding and values. So I think like collaboration, and which, comes out organically, is a good way of, bringing people together, because you need to create that, platform or those spaces where people can exchange, because there's a lot of knowledge out there, but if you do not have a platform to share, right? So creating those kind of platforms, and of course there are its own challenges, like when you're talking of virtual platforms, like people joining, we cannot guarantee that everybody will join, right? Or like that motivation also is, intrinsic. It has to come from within. Or you can also create these, small communities of learning within your own centers, right? So that's,
Yeah. Thanks, Shalini. And that you brought to a very interesting point that we are supposed to do today is the launch of our own community platform, that we are building it for the teachers and educators, which is going to be a platform where people like you can share, come explore. There are different things we are trying to do. It's like a Facebook, but it's very private. It is only for educators. It is only for the productive sharing and the forums and the discussion. We have a Teachers for Change program. So when we are talking about the collaboration under this subject, we are not only want to see like we are only talking, we want to walk that talk and provide such community platforms to build better, impact around. So when we are sharing this, we said if Krishna has something to say on that part. Is Krishna there? Okay. I don't know, because Kenneth also dropped out because of the network issues, and he was not able to join back. Renner raised hand when someone else was talking. No? Okay. Thank you. So then Anand.
Yeah, thank you, Dipali. One of the things I think we need to understand that all children and all of us have some challenges. Some of us can be numerically challenged. Some of us don't understand poetry. Somebody doesn't understand art. So I think I've worked a lot with children with challenges, and teachers with challenges also, both. So one example I want to give quickly is about when I used to teach an MBA program in Jodhpur. There's an institution called Manakla which works with children who have polio from the chest below, and they literally crawl like caterpillars. And I had to do a nature program with them and create a learning garden for them. And I was like, these children can't even stand up. How are they going to, create a garden? 120 children planted 5,000 plants, climbers, shrubs, grasses, trees, and they used to line up and pass on pails of water. And then I realized that the disability was in my mind and not in theirs. In thorns, in 47 degrees Celsius temperatures, these kids showed me the way that children, and if you give them a positive, learning experience, and the sort of excitement that this is possible, that you all are, so that was one example. Second, in one of the bird, we have a ornithology course, certificate course, and it was designed during COVID. So everything was from the window. And we had a mother call us and say, my son is paraplegic. He can only go on the wheelchair. And this is the first time somebody has designed a program which only talks about the window and the balcony. And my son can do this program. So taking the thinking process that somebody who cannot go out, how can we do that? Third thing, I've adopted a deaf boarding school in Odisha, in Sambalpur district. And there I went and did a nature learning program. And many of these kids used to be, in their free time, they used to go and hunt. They come from tribal backgrounds, and hunting using the catapult, etc., was a common practice. And while in the learning, we learned about the babies of the birds, the nest, and the habitats that are there. And one of them found a chick of an injured bird, a chick of a bird which was injured, and they took it to nurture, and the entire system changed. And now they kind of run a sanctuary, or what can you call, like a hospital or something. So I think learning experiences, and these are deaf children. I had a lot of difficulty initially because I'm a natural signer, but I don't know sign language. But again, the immersive experience that was created, and the empathy that, they came, that even that is a baby that needs protection, and you're also children, that you can be a caregiver. So that, while they were watching birds, they totally turned the scenario. So I think as educators, if we create multimodal learning materials, which can be helpful for deaf, blind, people with language issues, somebody who doesn't know a certain language, I think it can be enabled education for all. So that is what, and multiple players can come in, programmers, designers, artists, musicians. So many people can then become educators, and not just science and maths and history and geography. I think, there is potential for bringing even the gardener, as Paramjit ma'am said, your gardener can come and teach a plant growth. He's not a PhD in botany, but they have a lot of knowledge. A weaver can come in, even how a bathroom is cleaned, how much water is. I think everything can then become a learning experience. That's what I would
Absolutely,
share.
you're bang on. And when we are talking about, like as I said also earlier, we have to, even if we are thinking global, we have to start local. And that local means not at the local community, starting from your home at the personal level. Renner is clapping for your statement. Thank you. Thanks, Renner. Having said that, because as I earlier said, this part or this segment was on collaboration, and we said we have. I'm going to just take 1 minute to launch that community for you, and then we will continue for the closure, and then I guess we will end up in a right time that we decided to end this roundtable. So I'm going to just show you the platform, and this is the first time that we are showing it to somebody. So if there are some glitches happen, so sorry first of all. Okay, so Avni, are you ready?
Yes, let me just try to screen share.
There is a button down like a computer. You just click that, present.
Yes. But it's not screen sharing for me. It's
1 second.
I'm clicking on it, but it's not screen sharing. It's
okay. So that could be because of the browser you're using may not be allowing you to do that. That's fine, Deepali. We can put it up in the feed later and share it separately, I suppose.
No, I've done the planning, so I will do that. 1 second. I will share the screen.
Risk mitigation. Good.
Meanwhile, please continue and discuss that. Karan, if you can engage them for a minute, I'm sharing that.
Of course, definitely not a problem. I think from a collaboration point, because this is what we are, wanting to take away from today's roundtable. Are there any thoughts that you have which is very, very specific to, let's say, how we could integrate the RISE values into your program, or you would like to see us have something from your program, which is something that you say, it's like export import, right? So let's try doing some export importing over here just now. Any thoughts on that? Okay, she's ready. So maybe I will ask you to share those thoughts with us one on one, or even put it in the chat box would be great. Yeah.
Okay. Are you able to see
Yes,
the
Deepak.
screen?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Go
So
ahead.
this is the landing page for Academia Impact Circle, and this is one of the models that Caron has developed, which we call as a Select-driven Academia Impact Circle. So why we want to do this is to share, explore, learn, inspire, act, and collaborate. But this is not only like, this is not a stepwise, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can be at any step. You can go back to first step and explore this platform. So once we give you the link and you come on this landing page, you have to click this button, Academia Impact Circle.
Okay.
It's again taking time. Just for a moment. Yes,
Yeah.
great. Okay. Now, here there are sign in and sign up. So when you are doing it, you have to sign up. I've already signed up, but I'm not doing signing in because we are facing little lag. So once you sign up, you will see different tabs here. Right now you can see events, resource, and add forums. So when we talk about add forums, you can create your discussion group. You can pose a question, ask the opinion. You can raise a problem and find a solution on this platform. There are events which we do and it will go live here also. We will put the discussion, we will put the resource material. In the resource section, it is still under construction, but you will find the many resources which are useful as an educator, as a research student, as a bachelorette student. So these are the things we are trying to put in together. As I said, this is under working right now. But this is the community page that I was talking to you. Feel free to use it, register it. This is not going to be a general page. It is going to be dedicated only for the educator or the people who are working in the education or the research students who want to do something, extra when they do doing research. So that's it from my side. I said I will take 1 minute. I've taken more than that. Sorry. So thank you so much. Is it stop sharing?
Yes.
Okay. So I hope, Avni has put that link. So at least for now, you can copy. The people who are watching till now, they can copy it, and we will obviously make it live soon for other educators. So as I said, it is only going to be for the people who comes from the education or strive to impart education in any other way. Okay, so coming back to the discussion that we are doing and the fantastic discussion that happened, discussing the challenges, discussing the solution, at least a probability of having this on paper and the collaboration part of it. And you all have given a lot of, opportunities for us to think about so many options through your experiences, through your expert comments, and the how should I say this? When a person comes from an enriching background, it is very easy for a person who is in the learning stage. So for me today, I was a learner and I was learning from you all. Hopefully we had a good, conversation. So summarizing the entire thing into small, statement, that when we talk about this global education, value-based education, and the experiential learning, we kind of arrived at, this was hypothesized. If you remember, we have hypothesized the objective, that can this be the two components which will bring out the best global citizens. But are they only two components? That is also the question. Or we need something more also. So today we at least arrived at the point that yes, value education is not the education that should be taught. It should come with the experience, and that experience can be given to the students in different way. Not saying that, oh, we will go to the lab and do the experiment, but seamlessly, like Paramjit said, or like you all said, like Nina said, she has given that experience to this students, not saying you have to save the water, not saying that you have to do this. Instead of telling them what they have to do, if we do that and then they make a action out of it, that's what we are trying to do with the experiential learning and value based education. Having said that, like all of you who are there right now, if you want to put some closure pointers, and then I will hand it over to Avni. Reno, Nina, Anand, Samita, Mr. Umesh, Rajesh. Yes, Nina.
So in closing, I think I'd just like to summarize to say that values are something that cannot be dictated. They cannot be enforced. We need to awaken these in young minds so that they can appreciate it, not just in their time frame while they're at school, but also for their entire life. Our true impact of anything that we do will only be realized if this is carried forward for their future as well. That's when we'll see the true trade-off. It's not just about exposing them to these values right now, but for them to absorb it for their lifetime, which I think is critical. But that's all that I just wanted to say in closing.
Thank you so much. Anybody else in the closing part? Yes, Anand.
I used to work in New York earlier, and there we saw the children's parents. They used to have like parents used to come and talk about their occupation. I think if parents also become like if to have a 360 degrees learning experience. I think parents being a part of the education, corporates coming and being part of the education, the government agencies coming and being children need to be exposed to all the elements. An NGO coming in. So they will then decide, oh, this service sector is something that I feel very good about, or maybe the government sector is all I feel good about, or maybe. So I think, or sometimes some other parent, what they are doing. I think if that learning becomes 360 degrees, somebody might say, oh, I want to become a caterer because this seems to be a fantastic experience that somebody is doing. And they might find their calling from that. So I think, exposure to learning can happen from all sorts. And if parents are involved in the learning process, then the values will not clash. Sometimes values at home and values that are being taught in society are sometimes at conflict. So I think, if they both are becoming a part of the thing, there is at least some churning or discussion that might happen in that. That's what I want to stop.
Okay, thank you so much. I guess we covered a lot of things when we talk about system thinking. Renner, any closing statement from your side?
Yes, I think it was an interesting 2 hours because it's really something. My opinion is that this process of global citizenship education is a co-constructive process between the learner and the educator and the society. So we should be aware of organizing this process of a co-constructive process to develop maybe new values as well. Thank you very much for giving me the insight of this problem.
Thank you, Rena. We have still 2 minutes to go, and then we will do yes. And after that, Mr. Rajesh. Okay, yes, Mr. Umesh.
Yeah, actually, I would like to close this by saying that we need to sensitize our residents or the community with positive directions so that they can think about giving back to the society. They should value their own life. The moment they will start realizing the value of their own life, perhaps they will think in a very positive direction and do something on a global level, because we are connected, we are interconnected, and we are, as Anand showed, Vasudev Kutumbakam. So we need to give them positive direction to give back to the society. That's all.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Rajesh.
Thank you, Deepali, for Global citizenship, value education, and experiential learning is very much essential. And for this, teacher motivation is very important. If a teacher will be motivated, he can create global citizens. Second is after a teacher motivation, lot of experience of teachers is required from different activities. So from experience, he can utilize it for students at different level. So then he or she can make the good global citizens.
Thank you so much. And actually, I should thank specially. This is not a thank you that I'm taking away from you, Avni. This is the thank you that I'm doing to Mr. Rajesh, because he also helped me to put this entire roundtable properly. So thank you so much. Anybody else before I give this to Avni to close the
Thank
entire
you,
thing?
Vipali, for giving such a opportunity to me to connect, to create a network for a lot of people around the globe.
Yes, thank you so much. Over to you, Avni, now.
Thank you, Dipali, and thank you all of you to our lovely speakers. And thank you for your amazing summaries. You all have really made my job easier. So I think that some of the key highlights of our session today have been that value-based education is not something that's just taught through the lecture method or by bombarding our children, but it is something that definitely needs experiential learning and needs to be taught through modeling. And it is also not something that we can entirely leave, or the onus of which only falls on our teachers. It has to be with the parents, the families, the communities at large. And finally, also the importance of collaboration at various levels, whether it is at a local level or at a global level or at any level, is extremely important, as in any case. And as Paramjeet ma'am said, that it's not something that's very difficult. So let's just make this happen. And so once again, thank you very much, all of you, for joining this lovely roundtable, and to the entire team of Rise Infinity Foundation for making this event a success. Thank you once again.
Yeah, I'll just share my own thank you, and thank you so much for giving your time. Renner, he joined from Germany. Thank you so much, Renner. Anand, Nina, Shalini, Mr. Umesh ji, Paramjit ji, Savita, Rajesh, everybody, and the people who dropped because of the network with Kenneth and Krishna. They messaged me. So thank you all of them, and thank you my two lovely staff, my colleague Avni, my mentor Kiran, my friend Deepak, Yash, whoever they're handling the back end. So thank you all for making this roundtable successful.